So good morning, everyone. My name's Emma Coles, and I'm the Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership Manager. And I'm delighted to welcome you all to our first Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership HR Network meeting. So these seminars will be an opportunity for us to share information on key topics on inclusive recruitment, and we'll hear from organisations who implemented inclusive recruitment practices, as well as an opportunity for you all to network with your peers. I'd also like to thank everyone who has helped bring this event together today. It was done in partnership with Rebecca from CTEC Plus, Sarah Barrett from HM Prison and Probation Service, Rebecca from FedCap, James from DWP, Paul from TAP Social, Steph from Owen Mumford, Rebecca from Activate Learning, and thank you very much to Activate Learning for hosting us today, and Becky Cheshire from the Oxfordshire Partnerships team. In terms of housekeeping, there's no fire alarms planned for today, so if we do hear the fire alarm, please exit through the 2 fire exits over there and meet at the bottom of the steps. And toilets out through the double doors. Female and disabled toilets are in front of you, and the male toilets are just down to the right. So that's all for housekeeping. So in terms of inclusive recruitment, we all know that inclusive recruitment is a vital element of any organisation's diversity and inclusion strategy, because it's the most effective way to increase diversity across all protected characteristics, as well as beyond that. By creating opportunities for individuals in our county, it creates opportunities for businesses and for employers, including growing the local labour market with improved skills and access to a greater diversity of talent and capabilities. The adoption of inclusive recruitment policies can prove beneficial to employers as well as employees by maximising an innovative workforce. An inclusive recruitment strategy gives companies an edge over competitors and makes them an employer of choice, as well as helping to improve recruitment as well as retention. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of background about the Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership and our charter. So the partnership came about from a series of seminars pre-COVID, so a lifetime ago, and the recommendations and actions of that formed the Inclusive Economy Partnership. We officially launched in March 2021, and we bring together organisations across the county, so employers, businesses, education, community groups, and local government and other public sector organisations. So why are we needed? I think we all are aware of these issues, but Oxfordshire's home to quite significant inequalities. We're one of only 3 regions that contributes to a surplus of the UK economy, but there are 10 wards within the county that are counted within the deprived indices of multiple deprivation, including wards in Abingdon, Oxford and Banbury. And Oxford is consistently ranked as the second most unequal place to live in the UK in terms of income, housing and affordability. So the principles of our partnership are really looking at how do we reduce those inequalities, create those opportunities, as well as creating greater benefits for communities and citizens focused on the county. This is our mission. It sets out what I've really said in a couple of sentences around creating a more equal region, creating opportunities and benefits for all people within the county, acknowledging that we're tackling some of the biggest problems in the region to create a fairer environment where everyone can contribute and share in our success. So our partnership sits under a governance structure of the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, which is a joint committee of all of the local authorities and some key stakeholders working together to look at how we deliver a better future for the county. So we're managed through a steering group. So we have Jan Royale and Jeremy Long as our chairs. And in order to deliver our vision, we've got 4 key working groups that we have in place. So in terms of educational attainment, we're looking at things from school readiness up to being level 3 ready, looking through 3 groups for the next 12 months, looking at mentoring, parental advocacy and voluntary action. And then our inclusive employment working group, we look at both employers and employees and the barriers that both sides of those people face and what we can do to help improve that. And then also looking at social value and procurement. How can we ensure that we have greater social value delivered through our procurement processes and that is targeting the people that need it the most within the county? And then our place-based intervention working group is really the enabling working group. They look at the data, they work with the other working groups to make sure the projects are being delivered in the right places at the right time. Earlier this year, we launched our Inclusive Economy Charter. So this is a way for employers to show their commitment and support to being a more inclusive, to making Oxfordshire a fairer, more inclusive place to live and work. They're choosing from a selection of pledges based around 6 groupings, which are up there. So improving training and educational attainment. So how can we create workplaces where employees can thrive and grow? And how do we support educational programs for children? Recruiting inclusively, so making jobs more accessible for all residents and hiring from diverse communities. Offering opportunities into work, so making sure we're supporting those furthest from the labour market on their journey towards secure employment. And supporting local and social economy, using our buying power to support the local economy and maximise social value. Providing fair wages, so ensuring employees have a fair and decent wage, and sharing resources, skills and assets. So what are the practical ways we can ensure goods and services are accessible to everybody? Lots of organisations have already signed, charter signees, and we would love you all to sign up too. And it's an opportunity for you to showcase the work that you're already doing, as well as helping you to progress your inclusive economy practices for the benefit of your organisation, your employees and the wider community. And if you would like to speak to me afterwards, I'm more than happy to talk in more detail around the charter and how you sign up to it. So getting into the main agenda for today. So one of the key areas we're looking at within the Inclusive Employers Working Group is how do you support prison leavers into employment, which is why we're all here today. We've got some great speakers coming up. So we've got New Futures, we've got Paul Humpson from Tap Social, Rosa Kerness from Aspire, and at the end we'll have a sort of panel session for questions and answers. So if you hold your questions until the end, that would be fantastic. And then we're going to do a little speed meeting event, which will be an opportunity to go around to each of the stalls that we have for 5 minutes, hear from the people on the stalls, ask any questions. Then there'll be some lunch, an opportunity to go back and speak to anyone you would like to hear more from, or have an opportunity to network amongst yourselves. So now I'd like to hand over to Sarah.
Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all here. So thank you ever so much for coming today and, taking some time out to hear about recruiting prison leavers and the opportunities that lie here for businesses. Before I start, I'd like to say thank you specifically to Emma and the team for organising today. There's a lot of hard work and dedication gone into organising this and putting it together. And it's just a great example of how a county can really pull together and really create some great work. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So to introduce myself, I'm Sarah Barrett. I do work for the Prison Service, HMPPS, His Majesty's Prison and Probation Service. Old Charlie will have a word with me about that. So I represent a department within HMPPS called New Futures Network. Just going to give you a bit of an overview of what New Futures Network is. So about 5 years ago, there was a lot of research into why people keep coming into custody. There's that circle of crime, which I'm sure you've heard about, people just coming back through the same doors over and over again. A lot of research was conducted as to how we can break that cycle. And one of the biggest factors in it is employment, sustainable, solid recruitment post-release. As a result of that, New Futures Network was developed. There was a lot of news coverage around it. Like certain businesses were really getting involved in recruiting prison leavers and sort of tapping into that area. There's a lot of corporate social responsibility. It was a big buzzword around businesses trying to sort of be more inclusive of their diversity of their recruitment group. So New Futures Network was set up as a specialist department within the prison service to help link in with employers, broker the relationships between the prisons and within our regions. So there are 15 prison regions nationally. They break it England and Wales. Obviously, Scotland has its own prison services under a different banner, but England and Wales is 15 regions. The region that I cover is called South Central. So that's Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Hampshire and Berkshire. So it's very much that Thames Valley region. And within that area, there are 6 prisons. They're all male. So when I talk today, I'll talk about prisoners in the male form, because we don't have any female prisons in our region, but we do work very much with prison female offenders as well. So we work across those 4 counties, and my job is to talk to employers like yourselves about the business benefits of recruiting prison leavers. I appreciate that when you think about recruiting, knocking on a prison's door isn't necessarily your first option, but actually there's a lot of reasons why it should be. There's a lot of good business benefits, as well as that corporate social responsibility in helping somebody, give them an opportunity. So New Futures Network was developed, my role was developed as a result of that, and there's 15 of me nationally. So who are we? So we basically, as I said, the specialist part of the HMPPS, and we broker those relationships, bringing the community and the prisons together. We've got a lot of recruitment issues in the community, a lot of industries, certainly with COVID and Brexit, really struggling to recruit and retain. And we've got a lot of skilled individuals in custody. So it's about, getting employers to be open-minded to it and get involved with the prisons, and us supporting you through that process as well. So we do this in 3 main ways. We have what we call ROTL, so that's release on temporary licence. Not every prison does that. It's very much a niche area, and prisoners have to go through an awful lot of processes and to be eligible for it. But ROTL basically means the men in the last 2 years of their sentence can actually leave custody, go to work as everybody else does. They do the same job as all your other staff members, get paid the same, undertake the same tasks, adhere to your same HR policies and processes, etc., and then get themselves back to the prison in the evenings. When I say the evenings, they can do shifts, weekends, evening work as well. So something like the catering and hospitality industry, it's really helpful. The idea is it helps them to transition back into the community as they're coming to the end of the sentence. Without being crude, it's like a try before you buy for employers. You get to try that individual. Is he a good fit for my team? Has he got the skills that I need? And for that individual to try you as an employer. Is this an industry that's going to fit? Is this a company that I want to work with? So it's very much a successful initiative. It happens nationally. It's really, really positive. We work with a lot of employers that do ROTL, and encourage you to think about it if it hasn't something that you've thought about before or known about before. We have to go into it in a bit more detail. Please come and see me and have a chat about it. We also do work on release, which is probably the main thing. So obviously in the UK, people do get released into the community. We don't have, thank God, the death penalty. People are going to come back out. They serve a time, they get judged, they serve their time, and they come out. There's a lot of good work that goes on in custody so that when they come out, they're a better individual. But a lot of people sort of shy away from the fact that these guys are going to come out. And we want to make it a safer place. So it's about recruiting them as they're coming up to the end of the sentence. And again, we can very much support with that. It's the biggest area. Someone coming to the end of their sentence, we encourage you to come in, have a chat, meet with them, talk to them about their employment opportunities, hopefully offer them a job, start date, sign a contract, all before they've left custody. It's a really great way for you to know that that person's secure and come into that employment. And it's a really great opportunity for them to feel somebody's actually going to give me a good chance. I've got something to go out to that's hopeful on the way out. The other area that we focus on, if you're interested in, this will only be for certain industries, is we have commercial work in custody. So a lot of people aren't aware that in prisons, there's very much heavily focused on the guys going to education and work in the prison itself. So there's a lot of workshops that are set up. Bullingdon, the prison here in Oxfordshire, is a big example of that. They have a lot of workshops, and they can undertake commercial work. So one that we have at Bullingdon is DHL. There's a name that you will all know as a national company. They bring in work, the men do the picking and packing for it, and it gets shipped out. So a lot of the work or deliveries you get from DHL may have been picked and packed from prisoners in and up and down the country. They do all sorts of commercial work. We get employers that are coming in and setting up academies as well. So like a dry lining company may want to recruit people in dry lining and really struggling to it. So they set up a workshop in the prison, train the men themselves, pay for their training, oversee their training, and then when they come out, they recruit them. So it's a great way of investing in those individuals as well. So workshops is another opportunity if you're interested in, again, can have a chat about that. So we work with a lot of industries. Obviously, we do target it based on labour market information of what industries out there are really struggling to recruit. Catering and hospitality is obviously a big one. It's very high churn. Construction is another one. It seems to be so many construction jobs out there, and manufacturing as well, which ties in nicely with the workshops that we have in custody. Those are the three key areas because they tend to be quite open to recruiting prison leavers as well. There's not necessarily a skill set or experience required. They just want somebody that is willing to work, motivated, keen, and going to be more reliable. Doesn't mean to say we don't work with all employers. It's absolutely across the piece. We will work with anybody and everybody because there are different people in custody, all have different interests, all have different skill sets, and they all want different opportunities. So we don't discriminate, but based on the labour market information, those are the main industries that we work with. Household names, you'll know Halfords, Timpsons, Greggs, Bernard Matthews, M&S, KFC. They're all companies on a national basis that we work with. We also work with independent small businesses like yourself, Jan, very, very small, but it's about recruiting one person at a time, and we can support with that. We don't discriminate. We're not just after the big names. If you're a company that's open to recruiting prison leavers, one at a time, we'll work with you and we'll encourage you to move forward with that journey. So we've invested, when I say we, the prison service has invested a lot of money into securing employment outcomes for prisoners and maximising it over the past, certainly in the past 2 years. I've been in this role for 4 years. 2 years, it's been a massive amount of funding gone into it, which has been really, really positive. A lot of people, obviously, when ministers coming up for elections don't necessarily want to say, let's raise taxes to put into the prison service. It doesn't go down well, don't know why. But for them to invest in employment is a huge leap for us. As I say, it's evidence-based. We know if we can get people into sustainable work, they're not coming back into custody. So there's been a lot of money gone into it. One of the areas is, as I say, my role, which started about just over 4 years ago. We also have in each of the 92 resettlement prisons nationally what we call a PEL, a prison employment lead. And they've only been in post in the past 18 months. And their job is to find you the suitable candidate. So if I speak with you today and talk to you about your business needs and the sort of jobs you've got available and you want to try advertising that within a prison, I can then introduce and broker that relationship with the prison PEL based on which prison you go to, based on your location, the prison cohort function, etc. That prison employment lead will then really get to know you in your business and what you're looking for, the sort of candidate, the skill set, all of the sort of stuff that you're looking for from your staff member. And they will actively work with their employment hub team to find the right candidate for you. So if you recruit from the job centre, DWP, hello over there, colleagues, or on Indeed or any of the other platforms, obviously you only know what somebody tells you in their CV or their interview process. With us, you will get to know exactly what they've done. You get to know a bit of disclosure about their offence, what was going on for them at the time. You get a copy of their CV, but you also get the PEL's assurance. Yes, we can say that he's engaged with the regime, he's attended education, he's motivated, he's driven, he's respectful of other staff, he's supportive of other prisoners. He's going to be a great candidate for your business. Going through the prison service, you get that extra assurance that the person you're getting is really job ready and is going to be an asset to your business. So again, it's one of the bits of work that the PEL does is finding the right match. We're not a numbers game. We're not a recruitment agency. We're not here to say, we've got 5 guys coming out next week. Can you offer them a job? Doesn't work. We're setting them up to fail and we're not going to do it. It's about what do you want as a business? What does an ideal team member look like? And then the prison do that. The PEL does that work in finding the suitable candidate. So it's a really good, solid recruitment process. We've also developed employment hubs within each of our 92 resettlement prisons. So if you think of an employment hub as a job centre, it's like a job centre within a prison. So all of the providers that support the guys in becoming job ready are based in the employment hub. So the DWP, we have prison work coaches in there supporting them with benefits and housing needs, housing sustainment needs, etc. We have what we call information, advice and guidance. They help them with CVs, disclosure letters, interview practice, learning about skill development, etc. We have all sorts of third parties that come in and offer training and support services and packages as well based on the prison. So they are all based in the employment hub. So it's like a one-stop shop for the guys. As they come up to the last 12 weeks of their sentence, they all go to the employment hub and get that wraparound support in what they need to be job ready before they send their applications to you. The Employment Hubs has been a big initiative. It's really, really successful. At the end of today, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but there will be an opportunity to come to Bullingdon for those of you who are interested in following today. You could come and see the Employment Hub and the workshops that I've talked about as well at a later date. Encourage you to do so. One of the other big employment investments that have been made is in about developing employment advisory boards. So the EAB, again, all the resettlement prisons nationally now have one. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because I don't want to steal Paul's thunder because he's coming after me. He is the chair of the EAB at Bullingdon, so I'm sure he'll go into a bit more detail. But again, it's about having an outside perspective into the prison service. How can they help support it, overcome barriers, or look at new ways of working within the service? We are a government agency, do tend to get a bit stuck in our ways, we'll be honest about it. And this is a way of, fresh eyes and bringing the community in, and how can the community help support? But I'll let Paul go into more detail. So I started off by saying I'd talk to businesses about the business benefits of recruiting prison leavers, and there are a lot of them. As I say, you might not think about knocking on your prison's door, but I'm going to give you some reasons as to why you should. So there's over 500 business nationally now in the UK that we work with. As I say, they're big chains as well as the small independent, one-man band businesses and everything else in between. It doesn't matter. We work with anyone that's open to it. And it allows you as a business to tap into a talent pool of individuals that you may not have considered before. So prisoners, yes, have done wrong. Yes, they've been sentenced and they are serving their time. Doesn't mean they're bad people necessarily. There are some bad people out there. I'm not going to sort of sugarcoat it. But generally, they have been a subject to the circumstances, or not, opportunity, or bad upbringing, lack of education, wrong peer group, been influenced, been vulnerable, etc. They're not necessarily bad people. They've made a mistake, and we work with them in custody to really change that way and get on the right path. So they have a lot of talent pool in custody. We're talking people that have never had a job interview, let alone a job before, right up to those that have had, their own businesses, really successfully run their own business, and far more intelligent and talented than I'm ever going to be. It's for you to pick who you think would be right based on the job that you've got, based on the skills and experience they've got, and finding that individual that you want. So it makes good sense, business sense. Obviously, there's a lot of skill shortages at the moment. As I talked about, retainment as well as recruitment is an issue. We know that with Brexit and COVID and all that jazz that's gone on. The guys tend to stick around a lot more. If you're going to be an employer that offers them a second opportunity, they'll be really loyal as a whole. They will stick with you because they're so grateful somebody believes in them and gives them a chance. If you're offering a career opportunity within your business and not just a job, that is even more likely. They want the opportunity to go through the ladder. And if you're an open-minded employer, isn't going to discriminate against their past, knows all about their past, they'll stick with you. They don't want to have to go to another employer, be interviewed, talk about their conviction, drag all of that past up again. That's the past to them. You already know it. They're going to stick with you. And we do see that more and more. A lot of the bigger names companies say that, as well as the smaller. It eradicates the recruitment costs. It costs nothing to work with the prison service. I'm not a recruitment agency. I'm not a salesperson. I don't have targets. I'm not interested in claiming any money off you. Just want you to be open-minded to it. We know that recruiting through other platforms can be really, really expensive. We're not saying to stop doing that. We're just saying use this as another avenue. Lots of employers, Marks and Spencer's, Green King is another one as well that says it demonstrates lower turnover rates. So again, it's that loyalty. They tend to stick around. Certainly in those industries, construction, catering and hospitality, there is a high churn of staff coming in and out the doors. For the same reasons said about the loyalty, they tend to stick with you, and it really helps with the sustainable, stable teams that you have within your businesses as well. They tend to be very hardworking, and they're very committed to it. So again, as I mentioned, you give them that opportunity. They may never have had anyone believe in them before. They'll go their extra mile. I work with various eateries locally in Oxfordshire. They own the Copper Club and various other businesses. They said to me this week, the guy that they've just recruited is their best employee in their branch. I said he's absolutely phenomenal. He doesn't sit still, and he will always go above and beyond of everything that anyone has been asking of him. So they are really committed, they're very hardworking, and they're going to make a big difference to your business. And it helps to change lives. So, business needs aside, these guys coming out and working, they're not going out and committing crime. that means that the communities that you're bringing your children up in that you live in, is a safer place to live in. It reduces that reoffending. You know, we all have a part to play in it. I get prisons can be scary. People think, not going to recruit a prisoner, they're bad people. They're going to come back. Rather than your neighbour or the person down the street might be an ex-offender. He could be an ex-offender with no opportunity, that's likely to go back into crime. Or he could be working with the local employer and actually have a better opportunity to bringing something into the community that you live in and making it a safer place. So it also breaks down the barriers. As I say, these guys often don't feel like they've got a second chance. They don't feel like anybody cares about them. It's not real. You know, what good am I? I've got a conviction. Nobody's going to be interested. It's really quite disheartening when I see some of these guys in prison, and I worked in the industry for a number of years. As I said, they're not bad people. They're great people. They just are so vulnerable and just need that helping hand. You know, you really give somebody a self-belief and give them a self-worth and a sense of purpose. It's the most important thing you can do for somebody. It can genuinely change someone's life. You take ownership of that as a business, let alone the business needs and the costs and the revenue that you're generating. You go home every day and you'll feel really comfortable and really happy with the fact that you've made an absolute difference. So here are what some of the employers say. I won't go through all of the details, but these are some of the big names. So as I said, Halford's mentioned about retention. Best colleagues is Timpson's. You probably all heard the James Timpson initiative and you know how he recruits a lot of prison leavers. In fact, the Employment Advisory Board, the EAB, was a James Timpson baby, so we work very closely with him. Pret a Manger, Kelbray, you know, it's about the variety of skills and the talent pool of individuals that they bring in. So this isn't something that we've tried and it doesn't work and we're trying to, you know, push something that doesn't work. These are big companies. They're not going to invest in it if it doesn't work for them. And not just doesn't work, it's really, really successful. There's a few quotes as well here from prisoners. Again, I won't read through it, but this is just a couple of quotes that we have from different prisoners that have worked with different employers. And it makes a massive difference. This is that not corporate social responsibility side. This is the individual making a difference to somebody's life. As I say, you give someone a chance and give them self-worth. It is the most valuable gift I think you can ever give to anybody. We get quotes from this site, from ages, from all sorts of prisoners. Ages ago, I had a prisoner that I got into working for a construction company, but he was quite well skilled. He'd had jobs before, etc. Got him into a consultancy role within the company rather than a labouring role. And it was so lovely. I still have it today. He emailed me and said, you know, thanks for all your help and support and getting me into work. As you can see from the signature at the bottom of this email, I got the job. He's still working for them today and he's doing really well and he gets paid more than me, as he reminds me regularly. So just going to show you a short video. It genuinely is just a couple of minutes. This is actually with a female prisoner. So there's not one in my region, but the premise is the same across the board. It just gives you an idea of what the recruiting prison leavers does for them as an individual.
Do you help them get housing when they come out of prison? I suppose one of my concerns is that if they were to fall back in with, you know, whatever bunch of people it was that led to them having a conviction in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. How we can maximise housing opportunities for them. So it is a hand in hand. It's not an answer that we have 100% yet, but the probation team and us regionally very much sort of overseeing that at the moment, and it's the next biggest focus is the housing side. So yeah.
I think unfortunately we'll have to share the video with you
Okay.
after the event.
Oh, what a letdown. Everybody was so looking forward to that. To eat your popcorn anyway. Okay, so nearly finished. I just want to give you a bit of an understanding about some of the statistics. So in August 2022, only 14.9% of people were employed 6 weeks post-release. It's a really quite a low number. That's quite a high number to where it was in 2021. It's gone up 50%. It is a low number in itself. So we're talking about 15% of people that come out of custody are getting into employment within 6 weeks, which is what we call the crucial period, that's 6 weeks. If they haven't got employment by then, the chance of them coming back in the system extremely high. So we have come a long way. We've gone up for, say, 50%. We're now waiting for the next figures next month for 2023. We anticipate it's going to be about 25 to 26%, although we haven't had that confirmed as of yet. So it's sort of a provisional figure. So we're getting there, but we have got a long way to go. We will remember is not everybody that comes out of custody is going to be job ready. Some people still have, mental health issues, substance mis issues. Those aren't the individuals that we're going to be put in front of you. They are going to be supported through probation and other support charities and providers that are out there. These are the guys, the 25% of those, everybody that comes out is going into employment. As I say, 14 and 15 at the moment, but we're hoping to do 25, 26. And that is a phenomenal amount of people. When you're talking about 80 to 95,000 people per year, that's a lot of people that are coming out into our communities into safer employment. So we're going in the right direction, got a long way to go. I've been in this job for 4 years. I think I've been in another 20 to get to 100%, but I've committed to that. Same for 6 months post-release. We also track that because obviously it's about sustainable employment, long-term employment. So in August 22, it was 24.80% that are in employment 6 months post-release. So again, that's gone up 60% in 12 months prior. We're waiting on the new statistics on that, but again, it has gone up. We know that it's gone up. So we are going in the right direction, and it isn't just a short term, give them a quick job, a temporary job, and we count them as, oh yeah, they're employed, brilliant, let's shout about it. This is a long-term, life-changing game that we're talking about. So we're going in the right place. So that's it. I'm going to shut up. Here's my contact details. We do have a website, New Futures Network, as well. So please do have a look at that. I'll get Emma and the team to share the slides afterwards. Feel free to click on the link for the video. It's literally only 2 minutes, but it's quite an inspirational one. And I've got a stand up there. So please come and have a chat. I've got some brochure with a bit more statistics and some sound bites from other employers that have been doing the work that we're talking about with you guys today. I can link you in with other employers if you want to learn about businesses in your local area that have walked this journey and had successes. We can do a bit of that. We're here to support whatever that needs, whatever you need, whatever that looks like. I'm here to help. We just ask you to be open-minded and consider it. Before I finish, as I say, just want to touch on the fact that following on from today, If you're keen to learn more, on the 5th of September, we are going to be opening up the prison, Bullingdon, HMP Bullingdon, which is in Oxfordshire. And you'll be invited, you can come in and have a look at some of the provisions. You can come and see the employment hub, the workshops, the education provision, and walk that prisoner employment journey. So you're more than welcome to come and have a look. We hope that following on from that, it's something then you do want to take forward of absolutely advertising your roles and engaging with the prison. We get a lot of people that come and have a look at the prisons, and it's quite exciting, but we really want businesses that are genuinely interested in taking this to the next step and committing in some way, whether that's training, employment opportunities, or whatever. So yeah, please sort of tentatively hold that in your diaries if you're interested. If not, I won't be offended. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleague Paul, who, as I say, is the chair of the EAB and also the CEO of Tap Social. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there any way I can do this from very slightly to one side or not? Or am I not going to be in the film if I do that, or not being heard? I'm just conscious I'm sort of in the middle of... I'm all right if people can still hear me if I stand here. Yeah, cool. And am I moving the slides on? Just using the keyboard, am I? Yeah, cool. Let's see if that works then. Yeah, so thanks, everyone. Some of you probably heard me talk before. I won't talk too long, but I'm going to talk about two different things that are related but not the same. First being Tap Social, and second being the EAB, the Employment Advisory Board at Bullingdon Prison. And I will try not to repeat too much of what Sarah said, because Sarah does work for His Majesty and I don't. I might put a slightly different slant on some of it, because I can be slightly franker possibly about some of the challenges that I think the system faces. I completely endorse everything that Sarah said about the progress that's been made. There's loads of great work going on. It's fantastic there's people here coming, giving up your time, thinking about employing prisoners, but there is, we are still in a staffing resourcing crisis in the prison sector, and part of what you can all do to help, for those of you who don't already work for a government agency that's in this area anyway, is giving a bit of your expertise and your time, as well as just employing people to try and help the prison do even better. But first, I'll tell you a bit about Tap Social. Some of you, I'm sure, already know something about us. Maybe you've drunk our beer. So we are a hospitality group, small independent hospitality group based in and around Oxford. We brew beer. We have a bakery, a brewery, and a handful of hospitality venues across the county. And we set up from the very beginning in order to work with people from prison. So my own background, I'm a criminal barrister by training. My two co-founders also have a kind of criminal justice NGO background. So we set up a business, specifically a social enterprise, specifically to work with people from prison. So it's been kind of baked into our business model from the beginning. So I can talk to you a bit about some of the challenges and the experiences we've had with that. But a bit different, I appreciate, maybe for some businesses that have been around for a very long time and are now coming to this fresh. So in some ways, we're a bit unusual. Why a hospitality business? Partly because I quite like beer, and quite like going to pubs and bars and breweries, but also partly because we thought, a craft brewery that employs ex-offenders hadn't been done before. There's coffee organisations, other people in hospitality, but it was a new idea. Craft beer was and still is just about a growth market, so there's actually jobs and exciting employment there, hopefully. But also because hospitality, in common with lots of the other industries that Sarah's talked about, has what I think you need for engaging with ex-offenders, engaging with any new employees really, which is entry-level positions for people that are coming to this without lots of qualifications and job experience, but also a genuine career progression ladder within the industry. You can join us as a pot washer in the kitchen or a front of house or a junior baker, and you can progress up to a senior management position within our organisation or go elsewhere in hospitality. And hospitality is by its nature obviously sociable and friendly, hopefully, which is what a lot of these guys out of prison need. They just need a normal experience. As Sarah spoke about, confidence and self-worth and self-esteem and all this sort of thing. It's as simple for a lot of people as just being treated like a normal human being again after a long period in a very unusual and alien environment in prison. So that's why we thought hospitality made sense. So a little bit on sort of our impact model, I suppose. Some of these statistics are a bit out of date, but I think that the first key one remains stubbornly about right, which is about half of people that come out of prison end up back there within a year. That's basically, if you take one thing away from, I'm sure a lot of you knew that already, but if you're sort of going and talking to people and you want to take one thing away from how effective our prison system is at the moment in reducing reoffending, it's that almost, it goes just above or just below, but pretty much half of people end up back in prison pretty quickly. So it's not doing a great job, prison, at reducing future reoffending. And less than 20% of people are in stable employment a year after release from prison. Again, that fluctuates a bit. It might be slightly old, but it gives you a rough idea. And as Sarah said, when she presented the more up-to-date and specific statistics from the New Futures Network, some progress has been made, but these figures are not good. I would suggest. So it's incumbent on all of us. And clearly, as members of the IEP or people who come to this event, you agree anyway that it's incumbent on all of us to try and really improve these slightly bleak statistics. And yet we know that having a job on release makes a person significantly less likely to reoffend. So quite aside from the amount of sympathy that you may or may not have personally for someone in prison, and that will vary wildly depending on what they've done and various other their personal circumstances, the act of giving someone a job after a prison sentence massively makes the community that we all live in safer. That is undoubtedly true. So the way we do this, so Sarah spoke a bit about Rottle day release. We do quite a lot of that. We found that to be a really good way of getting to know some of our new team members from the prison. So we work with Spring Hill, which is the closest open prison, to take guys on day release, and then we continue to employ them after they're released from custody. We also take people often through referrals from partner organisations like Aspire, who've been released from custody and come to us just after they've come out of prison for work. We provide permanent long-term employment for ex-offenders. We also provide shorter periods of work experience. Sometimes people will come to us just for 6 months or 3 months on Rottle, and then they're going back to live in a different part of the country. And so we'll try and support them onto employment wherever they're going back to. Sometimes I'm glad to say we've still got people who joined us right back at the beginning of our journey 6 or 7 years ago who've now risen up to management positions within our organisation and are doing brilliantly. So different ways it can work. We support prisoner art programs, so all of the cans of beer and all of the artwork and all our marking materials and lots of the art that's up at our venues is done by prison artists. So that's another way that we can work with people who are still serving prison sentence before they're released. If they're not in an open prison, we use their artwork and try and get people thinking about prisoners in a slightly more positive way. We do a bit of employment brokerage. So I guess with my EAB hat on, that's kind of what I'm doing, trying to support Sarah and the prison employment leads in Bullingdon Prison and elsewhere to try and broker job placements for ex-offenders. And advocacy and talks. That's what I'm doing now. So really trying to, we're a small organisation. We've got 60 or 70 employees. About a third of them have joined us from the prison. But there's a limit to what we can do. So a lot of what TAP's about, as we hopefully continue to grow, is about getting this message out and convincing as many possible people in general, employers in particular, of the benefits of being a bit more open-minded and progressive when it comes to dealing with ex-offenders. So I don't have very many slides, and most of them are just pictures of beer and fruit and vegetables and breweries and things. But I mean, I've made this point already. The point is that even though we're a small organisation, I'm sure in common with lots of other organisations represented here today, there are lots of different things that go on within even a small organisation. And so that's important because people in prison are people, and there are different sorts of people, aren't there? People that are good at talking to people and desperately want to get back out and do customer service and speak to people and have a normal experience. There are also people who actually quite fancy getting their head down in a manufacturing environment, having a quiet day and feeling satisfied at the end of the day that they've achieved something. And there are people that are really good at IT and admin and be really good in the office context. Some people that hate IT and admin and be really good out on the road. So having a range of offers, either within your organisation or as looking at this together, having a range of different employers and different industries, rather than just pigeonholing people into prison and saying, okay, well, you've been to prison, so you have to be a labourer on a building site. That is part of the key to all of this. There's nothing wrong with being a labourer on a building site. Good job, get out and get fit, quite well paid very often, and lots of people in prison do want to do that. It's often one of the most popular things. I think Josh would say, if you ask people what they want to do in prison, a lot of people do want to do that. So it's great that there are opportunities there. But there are people in prison who don't, and it's important, even if they do want to do it, it's important not to assume that they want to do that just because they're in prison, I think. So having that range of employment opportunities, I think, is important. More pictures of random things. So the bakery is slightly more recent. So we started up with the brewery and the venues, which are great for lots of reasons, but we wanted to diversify a little bit. And during COVID, we actually ended up doing quite a lot of baked goods. We were selling that at the back of a horse box in Oxford at one point because that's the only way you were allowed to do business for about 18 months. And the bakery went really well. So we've got a really experienced baker who was a pastry chef at Le Manoir and then worked for Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's. He's absolutely brilliant. And he's training lots of guys from the prison now on the kind of bakery side of things, which is a nice extra string to our bow. So having talked to you very briefly about us and what we do, does it work? Again, some of these numbers are a bit out of date, so we've got way more. I think we've got 7 venues rather than 4 across the county now, and certainly we work with more like 60 or 70 people than 40. But the statistics down the bottom are about right still. I haven't looked at the refreshed data today. So it is about, I think it's about 7-point-something% is the reoffending rate for those that worked with us versus the national average of 50%. So it's not that no one that's ever worked for TAP's ever gone off and committed another offence. They have, but it's not very many compared to the national average. It works, and it's not just us, it's just having a job in general. If you go and look at the statistics for people that have sustained long-term employment, you'll find again that the number is much lower. 9.5 out of 10 is, the rating that the guys from the prison give us. So again, Sarah made this point, if you do give these people an opportunity, they're very often very cognizant of the fact that you didn't have to, and they're very grateful for doing so. And they've sort of become really great advocates for your organisation. And 93% of people who've worked with us find themselves in long-term employment, either with us or elsewhere, at that 1 year after release point, rather than the national average, which was, I think I said earlier, was 17%. We've worked with hundreds more people, so 60 or 70 people we've had in sort of long-term employment for a year or more in our organisations, but we're with hundreds more by going into prisons and on shorter placements. And I think we're up to about 70,000 hours of paid employment so far that we've created for people from prison. So, and there's a quote there from one of our service users. There is a couple of videos, whether they'll work or not is a different question. So, but if they don't, you'll have to take it from me that I'm not just making it all up, and the people that join us from the prison do have quite a good time for the most part and find it useful. So I think we're doing questions at the end, but that was a sort of very brief run through what Tap Social is all about. Should we give this a go? See what happens. Something happening, maybe? No. Oh well, let's not bother. How do I go back to this? Just click on PowerPoint to get back to the presentation, do I? Sorry? You're still in the presentation. Yeah, so I'll just keep going then, yeah. I've already spoken to you a little bit about the prisoner art. So a lot of the art was done by one particular artist who was in prison at Huntercombe for a good while. So that gives us a bit of our brand. But all of the cans have art done by prisoners on, and all of our marketing materials, and each of the cans of beer have a different statistical fact about the criminal justice system or the penal system. So the advocacy piece is trying to make people think slightly more critically. We're not pushing a particularly strong political message here, I don't think. We're not trying to say that people shouldn't go to prison, but we are just trying to get people to think a bit more critically, and the point's already been made, but it's worth repeating that, almost everyone in prison is going to come out of prison again. They're going to be your neighbours, they're going to be in the schools and neighbourhoods that your children are in. Do you want those people to have a bit of support and have a chance, or do you want them to have been in prison for years, locked in a cell for 23 hours a day with no support, and be furious and almost certainly going to reoffend almost immediately? And I think if you couch it in those sorts of terms, it's clear that we all need to work to try and improve the prospects for those people, partly because we might actually really want to support them as fellow human beings, but even if that's not the case, because it's just in all of our interest to make sure that people coming out of prison are less likely to reoffend. And as I've illustrated, and I say, I don't think it's anything particularly special about what we do at TAP, it's just that having a job, having that level of stability and investment is one of the key things that massively brings down that reoffending rate. I mean, the other ones are about personal relationships and about housing, and there are also really thorny, complicated areas that we can do less about. We've got one staff flat, which we can put someone in for a little while, and we do work with other agencies and partner organisations on housing, because obviously if you're released homeless, it's a massive challenge. But housing and employment, if you've got those things, then they all support each other as well. Obviously, if you've got family support, maybe that'll help you with housing. If you've got a job, you might have some money you can put down a rent deposit. We can lend people money for a rent deposit. So these three things go together. But if you've got some support networks, somewhere to live, and a job, your chance of reoffending completely nosedives. And so that's what I think we're all about, isn't it? Creating those kind of opportunities and that possibility. So that's Tap Social. Park that. And then EABs, so Employment Advisory Boards. Sarah's introduced the idea. I'm not sure I can talk with any great authority. In fact, I may well get it wrong and she'll have to correct me. But basically, as James Timpson and the government thought it would be a good idea if every prison in the country that releases people, because not all prisons release people back into the community, but most do, every prison that releases people had a board that was made up of the governor and the senior management team at that prison, but also, and this is what it's all about, brought in some external eyes and ears and mouths. So, they're chaired generally by people from industry, so local, either the third sector or just local business. And the idea, and this is kind of where I might be a bit of a call to action here, is that there'll be at least a handful of local business people. Anyone who isn't already in the prison world is what we're looking for here, really, I think. And what we try and do is we work with the governor and her team at the prison, and with Sarah from Youth Futures Network and with the prison employment lead in the prison, to support all of the work that's already going on in terms of the workshops in prison, the education in prison, bringing employers in to increase the number of people that have jobs on release, because those numbers, they may have gone up, but they're still really depressingly small, aren't they? 14%, 20% of people, it's not enough at all, particularly when in our general economy, there are employers calling out, there's an employment crisis, we can't find enough staff. Something is going badly wrong here. And what we're trying to do is by bringing people from the outside world who aren't already kind of mired in prison jargon and all of the things that, with the best will in the world, the governor of a prison and the governor of Bullingdon Prison is very good, I would say. And I'm not just saying that because I have to work with her. Her job is mainly, or at least in large part, about keeping people secure, stopping them hurting themselves, stopping them hurting each other. That's already a massive job. And she and her staff are trying to do it on something like half the number of people that they're supposed to be on the staff at that prison, with something like twice the number of prisoners they're supposed to be in that prison. It's not an easy context that they're operating in. And so it's no surprise, is it, that they often find themselves losing sight sometimes. I think they've got so many different priorities, and it can be quite easy to get dragged away and just be thinking about that safety and security piece. Obviously, we want to make sure that no one's hurting themselves or each other. That's really important. But unfortunately for them, they also have to be thinking about, well, what happens after prison? So it's for us as members of the local community, the employment community, to go in and have regular meetings. There's a few different subcommittees, but we meet, the main board meets sort of every 3 months, and then the subcommittees, it works out, there's a meeting every month or two. And just going in and trying to be critical friends, have a look at what's going on. And, if there's a workshop in prison and you think, this workshop doesn't look very much like a real job to me, and I'm not sure the guys are learning a huge amount from it. So are there things that we can do within this workshop that's happening in prison anyway to make it just a bit more like a real job experience? And you might, as an employer or just someone who's not already in the prison world, there might be some quite obvious things that you could come into prison and look at and say, actually, this could really be improved. Obviously, if you're an employer, then for all the reasons Sarah's already given, we'd love to get you into the prison to think about whether there's more you could do to employ people after prison. But it's not just about that. If you would be willing to come in, this event is a great starting point, which is on the 6th, when's 5th of September. So great starting point would be this event on the 5th of September. If you're free then to come into Bullingdon, as Sarah said, have a look. That will be a great start. But following on from that, if you or anyone within your organisation wants to get involved with this employment advisory board, I would love to hear from you. It could be that you come to one meeting ever and we just have a bit of a walk around the prison. You give us your insights and your thoughts. It could be that I can corral you into being an ongoing member of the board. It could be that you offer one job and then come off more. It might be that you've just got a really great network of other employers and you think, actually, I've got a mate who's got this organisation that might want someone, anything that we can do, because there is a crisis of resourcing and staffing in our prison system. The government does throw loads of people in prison, but then doesn't invest enough to then to give them any chance. And so what we're asking really, I guess, is for those of us in the community that can, giving up a bit of our time to try and shore up that ridiculous under-resourcing crisis that we have in our prisons, to try and give some of the guys that are in prison a chance afterwards. And so if you've got jobs for prisoners, that's amazing. But even if you haven't, I'm sure if you don't already work for the prison service, you will have insights about what the prison service could be doing better. We need to share those insights with the people that work within the prisons delicately, because they're doing a really difficult job and there's some really great people in the prison service. But the prison service could benefit always from more external eyes coming in, having a look at what's going on and saying, even within the very constrained resources you're operating in, is there not more we could do? Is there not a better way we could do this? So that's what the EABs are supposed to be about, I think. They've been around for a year or so now, and say most prisons have one. So I'm chairing the one at Bullingdon, which is our local kind of Cat B jail. It's a normal closed prison, so they don't send people out on day release, is what I mean by that, really, for these purposes. So for a prison like Bullingdon, what we're thinking about is how can we support people, work with them whilst they're still serving their prison sentence, to maximise the chance that once they are out of prison, they can get a job. They can't work outside of the prison whilst they're still in there, but they can do an interview. So obviously we can, on a day when you might come into the prison, we could organise some interviews for prisoners with your organisation. Even if you don't have jobs, mock interviews are quite good. Having a look at some CVs or whatever. This support is already offered within the prison, but again, not always in a way that's completely, the employment market changes, doesn't it? And that's another big thing that the ABs are trying to do. We're trying to keep an eye on, well, as things shift rapidly with the cost of living crisis, with the war in Ukraine, with Brexit, the local economy shifts, the opportunities shift. And so if the prison is still stuck in a world of 2-3 years ago thinking, oh, all the jobs are in this industry, and actually the world outside has moved on, how are they going to know? Because they're spending most of their time, say, looking after the people in the prison. They might be behind. So again, getting external representatives of the community in to say, actually, I think you're chasing jobs that maybe don't exist anymore, whereas you're missing an opportunity over here. I'm not suggesting that a lot of these things haven't already been thought about. They probably have, but it's about us getting in there, getting into the prisons. Prisons, are about keeping people in, but they can also often keep people out because they're behind these big walls. But it's about trying to break those walls down and bringing people of the community into the prison to look at what's going on, and for us to see, not to lock people up and forget about them for the period that they're in custody and then be surprised when they come back out and reoffend, but taking responsibility for the people in our prisons, I think, collectively, by going in and sort of doing what we can. So I think that's the EAB, and my call to action, I think, is just, come along to the event in Bullingdon if you can, get in touch with me. The best way to do that is probably if you email Sarah, who put her information out already, or email me. My email address isn't on the slides, but it's on the website. We and Kelly, who's the prison employment lead at Bullingdon, would love to hear from you, whether that's about getting involved in the work of the EAB, whether it's about coming in and interviewing people, offering jobs to prisoners. Just get in touch. There's almost certainly something you can helpfully do. I think that's probably enough from me, and then we'll do questions after Rosa's presentation, I think. So I think I'm just going to introduce Rosa from Aspire now.
Thank you. I hope one of the things that you've taken this morning, as I certainly have, is how passionate the two speakers were. Sarah and Paul from Tap Social, and to say to everybody here, if you're on your journey and you're here on your journey to develop a pathway for prison leavers into your business, look at the good people out in the community who are here to help you and hold your hand and work in partnership together. So I'm just going to say a little bit about Aspire, who we are. And EDI, which is, as you'll know, is Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, and where inclusive recruitment sits into that. I'm going to say a little bit about the prison leaver ex-offending pathway, and there'll be a 1-minute exercise for you all to do in that. And having just stood up, having sat on a hard chair, I'll give everybody permission, if they wish, to stand up to do the exercise, but that's entirely up to you. And then some top tips for any employers here on if you're at what I call ground zero on your journey getting started. And then what, in my experience and working with colleagues, is how do we support candidates from the prison leaver cohort? And just very anecdotally, it's been mentioned the event at Bullingdon on the 5th of September, and can I encourage anybody to go who would like to go? Because when I first went to prison, when I came out, I wasn't expecting to feel very uplifted and very joyful at the wonderful people I'd met inside. That wasn't the emotion that I was expecting. So I encourage everybody to do it. So Aspire, who are we for people who don't know us? We were founded in 2001. We work across, I want to go back. Oops, sorry, my, I thought I wouldn't be having any problems, and here I go, but I'm having problems, so just excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, my slide jumped ahead before I was ready for it. Sorry. Yeah, because I was. Thanks, Emma. Anyway, while that's coming through, I'll say a little bit about Aspire and who we are. Founded in 2001, and we work across Oxfordshire and the Thames Valley. I just need it to stay there, Emma. Oh, sorry. I don't want it to leap ahead. There you go, that's it. Right. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we work across Oxfordshire. Sorry. Sorry, Emma, how do I go back?
I think it must be on a timer.
That must be on the timer. Oh, yes, I just need to click back. Thank you very much. We support about 1,800 people every year. These 1,800 people are overcoming significant disadvantage. We help these people towards employment, if they want to set up an enterprise, education, training, and we also do housing. We do person-centered support around all these issues, working with other statutory agencies. We work with other third sector partners, and we sort of navigate all of this for our client groups so that they can thrive and move forward with their lives. Right, let's hope we stay there. Right, so as part of our Aspire offer, we do have a recruitment service. Now, some of you may have heard of Hire to Inspire, or H2I. That was a social enterprise set up by Aspire, and you can see there that was our mission statement, to offering meaningful employment opportunities, matching skills and needs of candidates and employers, to encourage socially conscious thinking, empowering individuals whilst offering professional recruitment services. And over the last 6 years, we've worked with a large number of employers and businesses across the whole county, helping and supporting them on their EDI pathway. Currently, our social recruitment service H2I has now been brought back into the charity. So how that's transitioning across. So instead of being part of H2I, we are now in what's called our employment training and education team. So we're EDI, ETE as part of our EDI, all these acronyms. So if anybody wants to find out more about that later, please come and say hello. Right, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go back. So if people wish to stand, this is the 1-minute exercise. And just wait, I'm not going to ask for answers. The thing I'm asking you to think about is, what images or thoughts come to your mind when you think about a person with an offending history? I'm just going to give you about a minute to think. Okay, that was a bit of quiet self-reflection for you to think about internally. When you think of somebody who is a prisoner, offender, what came into your mind? Did any of these people come into your mind? Oh, gone ahead of myself. There we have so a chef, Gino D'Acampo. Gino has an offending history because as a young person, he committed a burglary and he burgled, anybody of a certain age will know, Paul Young's home. Paul Young is a musician. Jane Fonda, she's an actress arrested for protesting against the Vietnam War. She has an offending history. You'll also see Paul McCartney there, also a musician, member of the Beatles, anybody goes back that far, arrested in 1980 for the possession of marijuana in Japan, and Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison for opposing South Africa's apartheid system. He wanted equality for all. So when you were doing your silent reflection, do people like this come into your mind? That's just something to think about for the future. So, top tips working with employers on this pathway, just to consider and think about. There are no quick wins in this pathway. As businesses, we all want to do something quickly, and it's like, can we have instant results tomorrow? And I would say, please be careful, because in our experience, that business ethos doesn't work here. One employer I asked about this said to us, don't do it for kudos or to have a good press or to meet your CSR agenda. Do it because you actually want to do it. Start big, think small. You're all leaders here. How are you ready to remove the barriers in your workplace? Because you're changing your work culture, as this gentleman alluded to earlier on. How do you change the ethos and culture of your business so that people from this pathway can come in and thrive there? What is the ethos and culture of your business? How do you know? A starting point can be start with a mission statement. And once you've got a mission statement, publicise it and tell everybody you can possibly think of telling. Get it out there. Do something small. Start with a pilot activity. Then you can monitor and see if it's working. Things happen through trial and error. You will be doing the right thing. Publicise your successes and learn from your failures. Even your failures, it's all worth doing. One of the things that employers have found very successful is having what we call vertical teams. What we mean by that is have people who are in entry-level roles in your business right up to the senior management team. So a vertical team where everybody is working together to achieve the same outcomes. We find that works really well, rather than just making it from the people at the top of the organisation. Vertical works really, really well. Also, you'll see other organisations here, everybody feels very strongly about this pathway. Work with organisations who have the same values you do and want to do the right thing. Even with low budgets or low resource time, success can happen. It can all be baby steps. Getting staff on board, how do you do that? Let's all work together on it. Your vision will come from your senior management team. And how can you then use your vertical teams to disseminate the message across everybody? How do you embed then the culture of this as a part of EDI into your business? How are you going to cope with conscious and unconscious bias? And then from this particular pathway, what are going to be your band offences? One of the considerations is when you're looking at potential prison leavers, are there any offences you wouldn't consider for your business or organisation? Are there any you would consider on a case-by-case basis? So for example, at Aspire, one of our case-by-case basis offences is arson, because we go out to a lot of buildings as part of our work. So arson is one of our offences we'll take on a case-by-case basis. So you as a business will be looking at your ways of doing that as well. And then from a candidate's perspective, this is not sort of comprehensive, it's just some things to think about. It was alluded to in the previous two presentations that people are people and everyone's coming with their own skills. When you're considering the development of this pathway, you may find it useful to think about a lot of the residents I see in this pathway want practical job roles. They like practical job roles with training that they can progress. For some, their schooling might have been intermittent or non-existent, so therefore job roles with training add-ons always go down very well. With the potential of these people to take on higher level roles in due course. Career progression also been alluded to, very, it's a very good thing. And again, also mentioned by Sarah, emphasising opportunity. Self-esteem and self-confidence can be low, and it was alluded to how they don't see how any employer is going to want them because they've got a criminal record. And for employers who don't think about that, these people have really good skills and they've got a lot to offer your business. Mental health can be low, and some people could be suffering with depression. So be a beacon of hope to these people. And how can you model that to these potential candidates? One of the barriers we find in our organisation is some of the candidates coming forward for the first month as you know, may find it difficult to get to your work location. So can you offer travel expenses as part of your induction and onboarding? And then once you've actually got your candidate there, what are you going to do to help them get settled into your business? Because they might be scared, they might be anxious from the get-go, and they might be too frightened to tell you because they don't want to lose their job. But they want to succeed in your business because you've offered them an opportunity. How are you going to help them do this? How are you going to adapt your onboarding process for these candidates? It's not just about induction, but ongoing in-work support. So have a think about how you're going to do that as well. So that's just some little thoughts. And please come and chat to me where you are on your journey. It'd be great to hear. Thank you. And you all sat down. I think that was very good.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. Now we're going to have an opportunity for some questions and answers. So would Sarah and Rosa and Paul like to come up here, and Rebecca, who's got the microphone, will be taking questions. So if you could put your hand up so Rebecca can get to you with the microphone so the people watching online can hear clearly as well, that would be fantastic. So yeah, open the floor to questions.
Question for Paul. So I'll come straight out with it. Here's my fantasy. So I recruit a prison leaver, and I work in the drinks industry. So there's thousands of pounds of alcohol in the office. They steal the bottle. They get really drunk. I call them out on it. They stab me. I die. My children will lose their father. That's kind of the fantasy. How's it been for you?
I'm still here. So all of my staff. I don't know. Our experience has been very positive. We've had, let's say, that sort of 7 point whatever percent it was, I said, have reoffended. That sort of equates to 2 people pretty much who've got back into trouble out of 70 odd or whatever that have worked with us in proper roles over that time. So it's a very low number. So yeah, it has been very positive. I suppose what I would say, to echo some of the points that I think sort of Sarah was making earlier, is that the risk of bad things happening exists, whether or not you're working with people from prison. And I think the real difference between working for people with prison and people working with people who haven't been to prison, to your knowledge, is just that with people from prison, you know a lot about this potential risk or this thing that's happened in their past. But the reality is, every time you walk down the street, whatever job you're in, you're serving customers all the time. You have no idea how many of the customers that come into your shop have got serious violent criminal convictions. You may well have people on your staff that have not disclosed criminal convictions or who have spent criminal convictions. So the reality is, the world is full of risks that we don't know about. Actually, there's one single managed risk that we do know about when we're working with someone from prison, and you don't know quite a lot, and you can choose as an employer what sorts of offences and types of person you're willing to work with and how you want to manage that risk. But certainly all I can say from our experience is we haven't had any negative experience in terms of people committing criminal offences against us or whilst at work whatsoever. And I think that is representative of the experience of larger employers like Timpson. So Timpson's is a big enough organisation that they've employed, I think, probably thousands of people over the years. And so, and they also have obviously thousands of employees who have joined them not from prison. And so James Timpson and his management team can actually say, with some statistical relevance, much more than me, that people that join him from prison make better employees. People steal from him. People from prison steal from him, and people not from prison steal from him. But the people not from prison steal from him more than the people that are joining from prison. So there you go. It just sort of goes to prove my point. These risks exist, but they don't exist particularly, I don't think, for this category of people. Our experience has been very positive. Lots of others who've worked for longer in this area had very positive experiences. It's for you, obviously, as employers, to decide what risk you're comfortable with and how you want to manage it. But I don't think there's this massive, scary risk in prisoners that doesn't exist elsewhere. Actually, I think it's just another example. But how you can really help society, the risk to society is that at the moment is we have these people, we're making them much more of a risk over time. And we need, as a society, to reduce their risk rather than increase it. And the way we do that is by giving them jobs and giving them some support. So you can do that whilst also managing the risk to your own organisation, I think.
I would also say as well, I'm a person who loves a stat. Timpson's say 85% of all the criminal activity that goes on in Timpson's is not committed by someone with an offending history. Because as alluded to by both Paul and Sarah, these people in this cohort, they're grateful to you as a business for giving them an opportunity. So the likelihood of them offending is, while they're in your business, is much lower than perhaps it might be. Yeah.
I think to be sorry, I've got one more thing. I never shut up. But I think to be real about this as well, like there are going to be types of job for whom certain types of person, whether they've got an offending history or not, are not going to be particularly suitable. So I don't think anyone's suggesting that every type of role is suitable for every type of ex-offender any more than it's suitable for every type of person. There might be certain roles that have such a specific sensitivity because they are involved in drugs and alcohol, and this person's got a drug and alcohol problem or whatever, that it's obviously would be ridiculous. But that would be the case whether or not they had an offending history. If someone just disclosed to you, actually, I've got a really serious drinking problem, then you're not going to put them in a role that requires them to work day in, day out with open containers of alcohol. So I'm not saying that there aren't risks that need to be sensibly managed. I'm just saying it's not specific to prisoners.
Shall I pose my question? And it was very much about how to begin to engage. And I think most employers looking at this will be thinking big, but actually, how do they start? Do they start small? Is that the best way to actually start small? Because people are thinking big. And how would they then perhaps engage, perhaps taking on one prison leaver to start with, and then reviewing that, how that goes, before then going on and taking on more? Is that perhaps the way it's done?
I would say there's lots of different ways of doing it. One employer we did work with didn't take on a prison leaver for 2 years, but in that 2 years they used all of that time to set up, what was the ethos and culture in their business, how were they going to train and support all their work colleagues. It went through the unconscious bias and all of that sort of stuff. So 2 years later down the line, when they then took on the prison leader, the whole of the business was behind the whole project. So they did it that way. So they started big and stayed big, and then went small. Or as a business, you might do it. Think, right, we want to take, we'll take the plunge and we'll try with one individual as a pilot. Then learn your lesson. What was successful about it? What could we do better? Even better if, and then grow from that position. So you could, I would say, depending on the business, you can do it either way, whatever suits you as an employer.
Yeah, we do tend to find if you try and do it too big, too quick, you tend up speaking to a lot of prisons and going into a lot of places, having a lot of meetings, but actually it's not an effective use of your time. So, you're Oxfordshire-based, Bullingdon, Spring Hill, the prisons in our region very heavily release into the Oxfordshire area. They release it further afield as well. But if your business in Oxfordshire or surrounding areas, linking with those relevant prisons, and I can help you do that. So I can pull through the AV and yourself. We can link you in with the relevant prison. And it is about, we're not statistics. We're not saying, we want you to take, 50% of your employees have got to be from the prison service, and here they are. We're not here for numbers. This is about changing individual lives. So if you pilot with 1 or 2 prisons, the prisons have different functions. We talked about release and ROTL, so the release on temporary license. Depending on what you want to do, you can tap into 1 or 2 and look to recruit 1, maybe 2 people. It's starting small, and we will work with you, and hold your hand the whole way. We started doing it with big companies, big, organisations. Bucks Council, I know in Oxfordshire, so I shouldn't say that word, but Bucks Council just started to do that. They're just recruiting a few people into their own services themselves, and it's about doing it small numbers. If you do it in too many different prisons, if you're a national company, you've got a big wide footprint, you'll have a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings and visits, and it will all sort of peter out. So we can help you on that and that one-to-one focus. Once you've done it once, it's actually quite an easy process. Recruiting someone from a prison leaver, from the prison service, if you want to do it for post-release, it's literally, send your job advert, come in and talk to the men about the position if you want to, if you're able to, your resources permit, but advertise the job in the employment hub. The team in the prison will find the right candidates and send you their application. You then consider it as you would anyone else. So you'll have your CV and disclosure letter, and then you can make a decision to interview and come in and interview them. So the only real difference is interviewing. They can't come to you. You have to interview them in custody for obvious reasons. And we do encourage you to come in and talk to, say you've got 2 or 3 jobs coming up, come and talk to them about the business, your expectations of staff and the roles, and you know, your training and benefits and all of that, because that really gets the men engaged as compared to having a job advert, you know, on the wall in the employment hub. You know, they don't have access to the internet, they can't look at your websites and things. So those conversations happen. But other than that, it's very, very simple to do in thesis. Obviously, you're dealing with people that've got complex needs and they might have not housing and all of that. We'll support you with that. But the actual, the process of it is actually really simple to do. And we can link you in with that. That's what our bread and butter is, really.
Hi, I just, first of all, thank you very much. I've worked in previous jobs alongside Aspire, it's fantastic. And I would recommend Tap Social. Go and have great beer down there. Go down to one of their comedy nights. Really good place to go. It really is good. And it's fantastic that you're doing that. One of the things generally for these people, as well as all of you, anybody that you're employing or currently employing, you need some opportunities for training. Everybody's heard of apprenticeships. I think we all know that. What you may not know of is the apprenticeships that we do for management and leadership. This can be done just one day a month. It's not like your traditional apprenticeship. One day a month, we will supply the training for them. It's online, so they don't have to make their way into one of our fantastic colleges. And it gives you as an employer the ability to really help these new employees or existing employees to gain skills, to feel wanted, to give them the opportunities, and also to give them something that you can feel that are offering them a progression. So if be it an ex-offender that you take on or an existing employee or somebody, don't just think of the traditional apprenticeships through bricklaying and plastering, but actually for leadership and management, which everybody may want to progress. But thank you so much, and talk to me if you want to know about apprenticeships.
That kind of links to what I was going to ask, actually. So we employ a large number of apprentices each year, and one of the barriers we had with a prison leaver was maths and English. And I just wondered kind of what support is there available throughout their time in prison with that, because that's one of the biggest barriers we find, is that puts them off wanting to do the apprenticeship opportunities, because most all apprentices, to my knowledge, you have to have a base level of maths and English.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and we know it's a problem actually nationally. So I think the statistic is sort of 70-80% of people that are in the prison service nationally have the ability of reading and writing of an 11-year-old. That's what it was, you know, about 5 years ago, and it's been a real focus for us. Education is a big part of why people commit crime. Often they've not, you know, finished school, or they've not had a great opportunity with academia and being in a classroom, gone down the peer route, and you know, crime has been from an early age. The prison services really recognise this. So all of the prison services have education contracts. So in our region, it's Milton Keynes College, and they come in and we have a contract with them to deliver courses and training in line with labour market needs. So, you know, if there's a lot of construction in the industry in the area, or catering and hospitality that, you know, as employers you're trying to recruit into, we've got guys in custody are interested in those industries, the contracts we can create around that. Maths and English is fundamental for all the guys and prisoners to do before they should be going on to anything else. So that is any other courses and qualifications in custody, as well as into work as well. It's very difficult though, because you can't force people to do something. If they've had a bad experience with maths and English or school in general, they don't always want to go, and we're not here to punish them. Their being in custody is their punishment. We're not going to sort of mandate and force it, but we do very much encourage it. If you want to go and work in this workshop, or do this dry lining course, or, you know, go on to catering and hospitality, work in the kitchens in the prison, first you need to do your maths and English. And we do try and encourage it through that means. Problem being, the education provision, it's very difficult to recruit teaching staff. It's, you know, that's not just in custody, that's externally, as I'm sure you can appreciate as well. So there's sometimes a backlog. We've got courses for maths and English running. Guys, we've convinced them to go on it, and they're encouraged to go on it. They've agreed to go on it, but actually there's a 6 week, 8 week, 12-week waiting list. And it's very, very difficult for the prison to then juggle, certainly if they're on a short-term sentence. So it's not an easy fix. It's not everybody's going to come out with maths and English, but those that want the opportunity to better themselves, those provisions are in custody, and we do support people in doing it. We're also very much looking at how we can embed maths and English across the prison as a whole, not just classroom based. So we have outsourced teachers who go and see them in their cells or on the wing. We try to, in the workshop environments, we do contextualise maths and English. So if it's a picking and packing, it might be some examples on the wall of, you know, you put 10 items in that bag, there's 50 bags in that box, there's 100 boxes on that pallet, how many items, so that when they're working, they're thinking about it and they don't realise they're learning. And actually we've got what we call education skills and work leads in all of the resettlement prisons now that are really leading on how we can embed maths and English across the piece and step away a little bit from that classroom environment, which seems to have quite such a negative connotation for the cohort of individuals. So it is a barrier that we are tackling, but if they're not engaging with things like maths and English and education, you know, we're not going to be putting them forward for things like employment, because you've got to do that stepping stone process. We don't want to set them up to fail, so to speak. You've got to take it in small steps. So yeah, it's not an easy win. Education in prisons is, you know, is something that's ongoing. Staffing is a big issue, as you know, Paul alluded to. It's not just the prison staff, it's the providers that we have as well. But we are tackling it as many ways as we can. We're also looking at diversity and inclusion. There's some teams set up around that neurodiverse needs, how people learn and the different ways they do it. And that's become a new role within the service as well. So that's something that we're developing and building on, because again, a lot of people in prisons, you know, I'm not trying to sort of condone their behaviour, but to say they're not necessarily bad people. It might be they've not had the education, or they've got, you know, the learning challenges that, you know, weren't a thing back 20 years ago. We didn't know an awful lot about, and actually these guys shouldn't really be in prison. They need the support, and we're as a service sort of turning that around a little bit. So with neurodiversity leads, education skills and work leads, education providers, we are getting there to support them in the best way we can.
It's interesting because personally, I think a lot of the apprenticeships that they do, it's mandatory to do maths and English, but actually it has no impact on their ability to do the course and be good at their job. And I don't know how we get around that.
There was a comedian I was listening to yesterday, and I can't remember her name, and it will come to me. And she was honorees, a degree. She was talking about how she got an honorary degree and everything, and she said she got a G for maths. GCSE, she's like, you know, a comedian, it's, you know, very successful and hasn't stopped her. It just goes to show there's so many different ways that you can actually be intelligent. It doesn't have to be a score on a bit of paper. And again, we're learning, and employers are learning that. Most employers will say, unless it's a skilled job, you don't need qualifications or experience. We want someone that's going to work hard, that's motivated, that's going to stick around, that's interested in the job, got a bit of a passion. You know, the rest of it you can teach. You know, you can teach all that stuff. So, yeah.
Can I just make a quick comment on that about apprenticeships particularly, because you're right, we do need a certain education level. But please don't let that put people off, because we do functional maths and English alongside the apprenticeship. Obviously, you get people that want to work on building sites as bricklayers. They're not necessarily going to left school with an A-level in English or maths. But for all of us, for society, to have those lower level, basic skills and functional maths and English, as we say, which are a reasonable level that we should all achieve. They're only, as I say, like maybe, you know, 12, 13-year-old sort of level. We will do that alongside apprenticeship, free with the apprenticeship.
Yeah, we have had that in the past. It's just, it's really tricky when they're failing it numerous times, but they would absolutely pass the rest of the course, and they cannot have that qualification because they cannot pass the maths and English. And it's really, you can see it's so frustrating for them.
I think
it's
as
just hard.
apprenticeships become more of a way forward, less people are going on to A-levels and doing a lot of it's apprenticeship style work now, BTECs and things like that. And I think as the government realises that's where, you know, the younger generation are moving into, they'll look at those barriers, they'll put it, and hopefully they'll do it. So it's probably more of a question for the education government than it is the prison. But it's a very, very good point, because it is a barrier. It is.
I don't have anything to say specifically about the apprenticeship thing, but I would just say, it's all about proportionate need for what that people are actually going to be doing, isn't it? And so I think looking at this from an EAB perspective, or just as members of the local employment community, there are roles for which absolutely you will need high levels of maths and English and other sort of school, you know, classroom-based skills. And then we, you know, one of the people, not everyone, lots of people in prison have got amazing qualifications. One of the last people we employed from the prison was a former senior doctor and manager in the NHS, and he was an operations manager in our company. And obviously, he committed a fraud offence and made a mistake, but he was a very highly qualified person. So there are, as I said before, there are all sorts of people in prison, including some really highly qualified people. But for those people in prison who don't have great maths and English skills, just ask yourself honestly as an employer, how essential is that actually to the role that you're, because often, as you say, it just doesn't really matter that much. Or there might be one, I mean, actually digital competence is probably a bigger thing these days. You know, some of our delivery drivers or the guys working in our warehouses, they do have to be able to work an iPad. But it's not about writing an essay, it's just about knowing how an iPad works and occasionally writing enough of a note that it's intelligible to somebody else. And we can support them into that in a matter of a week or two. Somebody who didn't think that they could write a word of English is able to do that job. And they don't need a maths and English qualification, they just need a little bit of help with using the iPad and writing the odd note that needs to be written. So I think rather than creating problems where they don't exist as an employer, just thinking about what you actually need. The same thing with barred offences. There might be, for the reasons we've already explored, really good reasons to have a barred offence for a particular type of role. But just think critically, is it important? Is this the sort of job where someone having a minor dishonesty conviction or a minor violent conviction is relevant or not? Because the answer might well be, no, it's not that relevant for this role. Do they need maths and English? Well, no, it's not that relevant for this role. If it is relevant, obviously that's fine, but be critical and think, you know, we're working with with enough problems already, so don't create problems where they don't exist, I would say. So if you don't need maths and English to a high level for the role, I can't answer the point about apprenticeships, but as an employer, yeah, don't create barriers where they don't exist, I guess.
Hi everyone. I work for a bank in Banbury. An incident happened last week made me to register for the event and join you all. So there's a young man walking in. He has a job offer. He left the prison in Oxfordshire, but he went to different banks and he can't open a bank account. So that is actually essential for them to have a bank account so the employees can pay. But do you create an awareness that certain banks can help them?
So yeah, it's a really good point. So I talked earlier in my presentation about the funding that the government have put into employment with the PELs and the EOBs and the employment hubs, etc. The other thing they've done is we now have in all the 92 resettlement prisons nationally, we've got a person that's dedicated to not only opening bank accounts for prison leavers, but also securing them ID. So at the moment, that's currently just birth certificates, but they are in the process of rolling that out to be driver's license. So either a renewal of driver's license or a provisional license as well, because it is absolutely a barrier to, you can't have a job if you're not got a bank account. So all the prisoners in custody, as they get to sort of, it's usually about 16 weeks before they're released, they all get asked the question of, do you have a bank account and or ID? If not, we can help submit it. So the banks that the prisons work with, they're allocated. There is a banking it's not a process, a banking initiative within the government. So every prison is allocated to a particular bank. So it's all sort of set up. The prisons can't sort of just go to a local bank and say, well, you work with us, it comes from the national team. But we work with Barclays, Santander, NatWest, and many, many others. Hopefully one of those is yours.
I work for HSBC, and
right.
the reason why I wanted to mention that, we have a special provision. We can actually arrange a basic bank account for any prison leavers.
Yeah.
If they can provide a letter from their probationary officer.
Yeah.
One with the picture.
Yeah.
So that will, to open an account, they have to have a proof of their address as well as proof of their ID.
Yeah.
But this one document will do.
Yeah.
It will be a basic account, but that will help them to get integrated in the society.
Yeah, and it is really good to know. So what we try and do is try and do it before they've left custody, so that they've got that bank account, that ID in their hand before they go. If they get released and their ID, for example, hasn't come through, the probation team forward it on to them, or then collect it. So that provision is there. Whether the men take advantage of it, they might think, oh yeah, no, I've got a bank account, I don't need it. Go out and realise, oh well, actually that was 6 years ago and I was in, my account's been closed. We do sort of let them know that they can go to the banks and get it, but they'll need to go to, that's where sometimes the DWP come in hands, that they support them with giving them references and letters and getting involved in, breaking down that barrier of having address and paperwork. They could do help things like national insurance numbers, getting proof of that to take into the bank and things. So yes, we do have that provision, but that's only fairly new. That's only happened since October last year of having those ID and bank account people in custody. So, but yeah, again, it's identified by the service as a barrier. We're trying to overcome it and break it down. So we are getting there with the resources that we have.
Can I just ask, you said you've got people in prison in terms of looking at bank accounts for the prison leavers.
Yeah.
How do people fall through the gaps then? Because our organisation tend to find the majority of the case, they don't have bank accounts, or who I've worked with. What's happening?
So as I say, it's only been in since October. So if guys have, sort of come out and it's been before that, then they won't have had it because that provision wasn't there. I think sometimes the guys are all asked, do you have it and do you need support with it? The provision is available. A lot of them don't want to necessarily work with the prison service. They see us as a barrier of, hang on, you're the person that locks me up every day. I don't want to do anything that you're going to offer me. It's a little bit cut off your nose to spite your face. I don't think they realise that at the time. So they sometimes refuse that, or as I say, they may think they've got a bank account, which has subsequently since closed. When they come out, it's gone. So we offer the service, and everybody gets an opportunity, whether they've been sentenced on remand or regardless of offence. We will offer that opportunity to send down to them to take advantage of it. So hopefully, as things move forward, and that's now rolled out, and they have birth certificates and, as I say, driver's licence, you should hopefully see less and less of those individuals. If you're not, come back to me and I'll make
So who would I contact? Would I contact yourselves if I was willing to? Could I refer to you because you're internal, aren't you?
Yeah, so as I say, I don't work in the prison, I work across the six, but the prison employment leads, the PELs, so it's Paul alluded to, Kelly is at Bullingdon. She is her team member, her member of staff that oversees the bank account. So yes, we can actually link you in. If you've got a guy that you know you're working with, that you know is coming out of Bullingdon soon and he needs that support, we can link and go, can you just make sure that that's being offered, that he's aware of it, that he's encouraged to do it? Yeah, we can do it like that.
Sorry, it's actually a question for you really quickly. With HSBC, so we had a situation last week. It's not actually nationwide at the moment, we found out. So Oxford is the closest HSBC branch, I think, that does it.
It's like
Banbury.
Banbury. So we're based in Aylesbury. So they could do it.
Yeah, there is an Aylesbury and branch also, but I receive a lot of letters from, I have helped about 10 people recently, and they bring letters from the probation officer. There's a set specification, but they are very much aware of it. All the letters I received from you is perfectly spot on, we didn't have any issues. And so if we receive that letter alone, we can open a basic account for something, and on the same day.
So even if we're based in Aylesbury, we can refer to you.
Yes, if they have a letter from the probation officer, yeah, of course they can, they are more than welcome to come and HSBC. I mean, I will share my details with you. I mean, we do this as part of our inclusivity and access to the bank accounts.
Brilliant. It is really good. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, I think we're going to have to come to a close, and I'd like to say thank you very much to our speakers. They've been absolutely fantastic. I hope you've all been inspired. Thank you very much for attending today. We're running slightly over, so I think we'll put aside the speed meeting, but please do grab some lunch and come and have a chat with the different stalls around the room, find out more about the different offers that they have. But lunch is through in the other room. So thanks again for coming. We'll share all the presentations probably tomorrow with you all, and any useful links from what people have talked about already. So yeah, thank you all very much.